Good afternoon. The meeting of the AmeriCorps Board of Directors will now come to order. I want to thank everyone and thank all of you for joining us today for this meeting. My name is Kathy McLaughlin. I'm honored to serve as the board chair. I would like to welcome our new board members who have joined us since our last meeting, Leslie and Shirley, for our meeting today. They were confirmed after our last meeting, so this is exciting to have them join us. AmeriCorps is unique among federal agencies in having a board of directors appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. I'm excited to serve with colleagues who bring such a vast experience and expertise from many backgrounds. First, before we begin, I'd like to thank the AmeriCorps staff at headquarters and around the country for your commitment, hard work, and professionalism in carrying out AmeriCorps' mission. We couldn't do what we do without all of you. I'd also like to express my deep appreciation to the 250,000 dedicated members, volunteers, and staff that serve AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps Seniors program across the country. Every day you do the vital work to improve lives, expand opportunity, strengthen communities, and unite our nation. We are grateful for your service and proud to be your partners. Let me go over today's agenda. First, our CEO, Michael Smith, will provide his report to the board. Then Fagan will report on the Oversight, Governance, and Audit Committee. The board will then consider a resolution on AmeriCorps 2023 annual grant-making plan. We will then have a virtual tour to learn about AmeriCorps' impact in education. We will conclude by opening up the meeting for public comments. If you'd like to make a comment, please indicate your interest by using your raise your hand feature on Zoom. If you're joining by a conference call instead of Zoom, you will not be able to comment, but there's still time for you to join Zoom. I'd like to share a brief recap of the board's activities today and what we'll be doing tomorrow. Earlier today, the board met with senior staff about several topics, including the agency's work to strengthen financial management, budget matters, the agency's legislative and regulatory priorities, and the FY23 grant-making plan. We were pleased to see the progress made on key agent priority of raising member living allowances and stipends to support recruitment and retention and to advance equity, which is a major focus of our board meeting in May. Tomorrow, the board will be meeting at the White House with senior officials to discuss the president's unity agenda and the ways we can work together with the White House and other agencies to strengthen the role of national service in meeting critical challenges, expanding opportunity, and fostering national unity. We will then meet with the AmeriCorps Inspector General. As a board of directors, ensuring federal resources are properly and effectively spent is a key priority. And we recognize the important role of the Inspector General in helping us strengthen fiscal management and accountability. Finally, we will meet with the union president and close out the day with discussions on AmeriCorps member recruitment, schools of national service, and board engagement opportunities. I'm excited and impressed from our conversations today and the reports we've been getting the past few months about the excellent work that's being done across the country and the agency's progress on many fronts. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce AmeriCorps CEO, Michael Smith. Michael's done an incredible job since taking the helm of the agency just in January. It might seem longer than that, Michael. Bringing his decades of experience in public and nonprofit sectors to help AmeriCorps increase its impact and effectiveness. Michael, I'll turn this over to you now.
Thank you, Kathy, so much. And thank you to all of you, our extended Ameri family, for joining us today. Let me start by saying how grateful we are to have such outstanding board members who bring extraordinary knowledge and experience in matters related to our mission. We are excited to work with all of you to increase the impact of service and volunteering and tackling the nation's biggest challenges. I'd like to thank our amazing AmeriCorps team and our thousands of partners across the country who support this extraordinary system of national service that is so important to the health and the well-being of our nation. It's a privilege to lead this agency, not only because of the transforming work we do every day, but also because of the passion and commitment of all of those in our AmeriCorps family. Over the past few months, I've had the opportunity to meet hundreds of AmeriCorps members and AmeriCorps Senior Corps volunteers every day, AmeriCorps Senior volunteers every day. And every project that I visit, every member or volunteer that I meet, I am more confident about the power and the potential of national service. I think about my new friend, the 81-year-old foster grandparent that I met in Maine, Grammy Fran. There's a little video on our LinkedIn page if you want to learn more about Granny Fran. Grammy Fran didn't let the pandemic stop her from serving her kids. After her school shut down during the COVID pandemic, she secured free laptops for her fellow volunteers, learned how to use laptops and other, like they had training for each other. And within weeks, they were back with their kids, reading stories and giving support and even starting a remote crafts program. Grammy Fran told me that she put together crafts kits and would drop them off to the teachers so they could distribute in the neighborhood. She has been a foster grandparent for 21 years, and she says her service gives her purpose, meaning, and a life of abundance. She told me, and I quote, "I might not have much to leave when I die, but I can leave a legacy every day by what I do." I just, can you feel it? We all need to go to Maine and see Grammy Fran. I think about a young man I met in Baltimore at a service project with second gentleman Doug Emhoff, and the second gentleman has become such a great champion of our work. The young man was raised by a single mom, and his family had been touched by homelessness. He talked about living on porches, dropping out of school, and losing his friends to violence and drugs. He told me that he found his purpose, his calling, and even his career path in AmeriCorps through our partner at Civic Works in Baltimore. I think about Improve Your Tomorrow, a program that I visited in California that is breaking generational cycles of poverty by engaging AmeriCorps members as mentors for young men of color, helping them graduate high school and go to college. Their impact is extraordinary. Black and Latinx students receiving mentoring through Improve Your Tomorrow had a high school graduation rate of 99.5% compared to a statewide rate of 81%. I heard story after story about young men who overcame incredible odds thanks to the mentoring they received and are now giving back to other young men as mentors themselves. And I think what you hear there is that transformative power of not only making a difference in the communities we're serving, but how our AmeriCorps members are being changed themselves. If we talk about some other recent accomplishments, I can't help but to think about the United We Stand Summit at the White House last month, which really lifted up an important truth that we all know from doing this work. Service is a uniting force. When people from different backgrounds come together to serve, they focus on what they share in common, not what divides them. And of particular importance to all of us, our boss, President Biden, used the summit to call for a new era of national service to foster stronger communities to bridge divides in our society. To carry that call forward, President Biden asked AmeriCorps to take a leadership role in advancing the United We Serve campaign to encourage Americans to serve with an emphasis on bridge building and social cohesion. And over the coming weeks, we will be following up on the summit, including exploring opportunities for national service partnerships with other federal agencies, developing training for members and skills like civic bridge building, working with the Office of Personnel Management and our friends at Peace Corps to enhance pathways from service into federal service, which we are so excited about the opportunities there, and working with philanthropic partners to support service and civic engagements that foster unity and social cohesion. The summit was one of many highlights since the board met in May. AmeriCorps and our partners have been hard at work meeting critical needs in communities across the nation, and we are making progress on many fronts. And I'd like to share, if it's okay, Madam Chair, a few highlights. Right now, AmeriCorps is playing a key role in responding to natural disasters in Florida, Puerto Rico, and Missouri, just to name a few places. We have deployed more than 240 AmeriCorps members to support communities hit hard by natural disasters. In Florida, we have 100 AmeriCorps disaster response team members that are responding to Hurricane Ian. In Puerto Rico, we have 82 FEMA Corps and SBP AmeriCorps members that are responding to Hurricane Fiona. And in Missouri, we have deployed 55 members to support flood relief. And throughout all of those projects, they are working on challenges such as survivor assistance, the hard work of mucking and gutting, tree removal, wellness checks, supporting our partners at FEMA with logistics, and so much more. But beyond that work that's happening right now, these efforts represent just the first phase of our involvement. We stay on the scene long after the TV cameras are gone. In fact, our data shows that members that are serving right now will likely, those members and those teams will likely be in the community for 3 to 5 years after major disasters. Just yesterday, we released a study that shows that national service disaster response efforts return nearly $12 for every $1 federal dollar investment, and reduce construction costs, increase tax revenue, reduce spending, and employment and education outcomes for AmeriCorps members and their service. And our disaster service work meets another critical need, which is building the future emergency management workforce. FEMA, our partners on FEMA they've hired 23% of the 5,600 FEMA Corps graduates over our last 10 years. And 70% of this most recent graduating class was issued job offers. So it's making a tangible difference right now. AmeriCorps members and volunteers continue to address the everyday disasters of illiteracy, hunger, homelessness, poverty that afflicts way too many Americans. We continue to implement our groundbreaking Public Health AmeriCorps program, which is our $400 million partnership with the Centers for Disease Control. And that is working to not only meet state and local public health challenges, but also working to develop the workforce pathways for public health centers. And last week, I had the pleasure of joining our board member Fagan at the swearing in of the Baltimore Public Health AmeriCorps members. And we are well on our way. I think we now have nearly 1,000 Public Health AmeriCorps members that are getting sworn in, are ready to serve all across the country. AmeriCorps projects continue to provide teaching, tutoring, mentoring, and other educational support to students across the country. I think many of you probably know that our largest footprint for AmeriCorps is actually in the schools. We have nearly 70,000 AmeriCorps members that are in the K-12 setting and about 12,000 schools across the country. And I think what we've learned is coming out of the pandemic, these programs will be more important than ever to address learning loss, providing supplemental instruction and supporting social and emotional development. And that is exactly why we wanted to go even a step further by partnering with the White House, the Department of Education, and our outside partners to launch the National Partnership for Student Success, which we did last June. This partnership is a 3-year effort to recruit, train, support, and engage an additional 250,000 caring adults to serve as tutors, mentors, student success coaches, wraparound service coordinators, and post-secondary transition coaches to help students succeed. Because what we've heard from our educators, yes, they need to be paid more. Yes, we need to invest more in the infrastructure, but they also said we're being asked to do so much as just one individual. So please come in and help us. And we have seen how AmeriCorps is already helping, how volunteers are already helping. And through the National Partnership for Student Success, we're going to do even more. Moving from education to climate, we are expanding our program to address the threat of climate change and preparing young people for future green jobs. We have more than 15,000 AmeriCorps members and volunteers that are currently serving in these projects each year, and there is great opportunity to expand this work. For example, this summer, our AmeriCorps NCCC program launched a successful Summer of Service pilot focused on climate and conservation. And then we have our state service commissions in California, Colorado, Maine, and Michigan, and some other states that have recently developed an innovative Climate Corps program, which the Washington Post actually highlighted just last week. Beyond that, we have raised the minimum AmeriCorps living allowance in both AmeriCorps State and National and Vista to $17,600 for full-time service, and increasing the AmeriCorps living allowance, as Kathy mentioned earlier, and our AmeriCorps senior stipend. That amount is not just a top priority of this agency and the board, but last month, President Biden himself called on Congress to raise the living allowance. Not only did he ask Congress to raise the living allowance, but he said, let's get it done. Let's raise it to $15 an hour, and let's do it by fiscal year 2025. So we've got a goal in mind. And so we're committed to continuing on this path to remove barriers to service, advancing our equity goals, and ensuring national service is a viable option for all people, no matter where they come from or who they are. And that commitment, I want everyone to know, includes working to increase the stipend that our foster grandparents and our senior companion volunteers receive to ensure our low-income elders have the resources they need to serve. I was actually asking Grammy Fran, I said, Grammy Fran, how are you buying those crafts? She said, I'm using my stipend. I was like, Grammy Fran, you're supposed to use that for gas and to buy lunch when you're on your, she's like, you know, she said something like, I work to the amount of cloth that I'm given, but we're going to get your backs, our foster grandparents and our senior companions, and make sure that you have the resources that you need to serve. And as we continue to work with Congress to increase compensation levels, we are also encouraging grantees and philanthropic organizations to take action now. Don't wait for us. It takes a little while to move the ship that is the federal government, but you can provide all sorts of wraparound supports for our members and increase living allowances now. And we have been so encouraged by some of our partners in the ground, like AmeriCorps, that's increased their living allowance, the California Climate Corps. We're also even seeing this interesting coalition that's coming together from philanthropy, foundations like the Schultz Philanthropies and Ballmer Philanthropies that are providing resources to our grantees to help raise living allowances and other wraparound benefits. I also want everyone to know that we are investing in recruitment and retention. We have stood up our first centralized recruitment office in 20 years. We haven't had a centralized recruitment unit in 20 years, and we're investing more dollars on marketing and working closely with our partners in the field so that everyone who wants to serve hears about this incredible opportunity to serve. We are also making steady progress on our top priority of improving financial management and addressing findings from our financial statements audit. And I am so grateful for the leadership of this board of making sure that we are keeping our eye on fixing the infrastructure. It's not always the fun part of the work, but we can't do anything that we want to get done publicly or working with our members if we don't have our financial house in order, and we are going to get that done. So this is just a partial list of accomplishments over the past few months. It does not include our ongoing work to award and monitor grants, to run so many other programs, to conduct research, administer education awards, and support our members and volunteers that are serving at more than 40,000 locations across the country. But it's just a highlight. So looking ahead, we have a lot that is on our plate in the coming months, including awarding our largest ever set of Volunteer Generation Fund grants in support of the National Partnership for Student Success. We will be releasing our Volunteering and Civic Life in America survey data. We will be reviewing our AmeriCorps state and national planning grants. We will be mobilizing for the Martin Luther King Jr. Day of National Service. Even though it's been a little warm, Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service is right around the corner, and we are gearing up for that. And we are going to continue to focus on recruiting and retaining a strong, diverse corps, working to raise living allowances and stipends to make service more accessible, and making the operational improvements necessary to support the work of our grantees, members, and the volunteer field. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Michael, thank you. That is an amazing report, and the work that's being done in the country is so, everything that everyone's doing here, your staff and the volunteers, it's really made a huge difference in the world. So thank you for your leadership. Do any of the board members have any comments or want to respond to anything from the report? Are we all good? Okay. Then we'll turn this over. We need to hear a report from our Oversight, Governance, and Audit Committee. So Fagan, let me turn this over to you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And I'll join you in just welcoming Leslie and Shirley, two leaders who have admired for a long time to the board. I'm so excited you all are here. Thank you for the opportunity to update the board on the Oversight, Governance, and Audit Committee. This committee is reflective of the board's commitment to AmeriCorps' progress on improving the effective stewardship of funds. We will be champions for this important work and support the agency as thought partners in keeping us all accountable. It was clear to the board that the agency has serious work ahead in this area. Our engagement through this committee reinforces the seriousness of the work and provides the additional focus needed to be successful. The Oversight, Governance, and Audit Committee met for the first time in late August of this year. As this was our first meeting, we focused on introductions, sharing of expectations, and setting near-term goals for the committee. The committee will continue to meet every other month and focus on clarifying the purpose and establishing operating procedures. As purpose and process become clearer, the committee will engage in reviewing more audit findings, corrective action plans, stewardship of funds, and internal controls of the agency. The committee will continue to provide updates to the board on both the progress of formalizing the committee and ultimately the performance of the agency.
Thank you, Fagan. The board really does appreciate how the CEO and the senior leadership team of the agency have made improving the financial management and addressing audit findings a top priority. And we commend the agency for the progress it has made to develop and implement corrective action plans to address the audit findings and make other key operational improvements. The board fully supports these plans and action steps and encourages the agency to continue to work with the Inspector General and to prioritize resources and attention on addressing findings and other improvements in operations and core business practices, which will better serve our grantees and partners in meeting the needs across the country. Our next matter of business is to consider the agency's FY23 grant-making plan. One of the board's primary responsibilities under the statute and bylaws is setting overall policy for the agency, including reviewing and approving the strategic plan and annual updates of the plan. The annual grant-making plan is the formal vehicle through which the board of directors authorizes the agency to make competitive grants and enroll or authorize grantees to enroll members. This grant-making plan is for the grant-making using FY23 annual appropriations. Given the agency does not have its final FY23 appropriation for Congress and is operating under a continuing resolution, the plan assumes level annual appropriations from FY22. The grant-making plan will be revisited if AmeriCorps receives a higher or lower appropriation for FY23. The staff has prepared a comprehensive and well-designed plan, which we discussed at our meeting this morning. I would recommend the board approve the plan. Would any other board member like to speak on the grant-making plan before we move ahead? No one? I would like to entertain a motion to approve the FY23 grant-making plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. All in favor, say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All opposed? The resolution is approved and the grant-making plan will be posted on AmeriCorps' website. Now, our next agenda item is one I'm really looking forward to. At our last board meeting, we had a virtual tour across the country to learn about the impact of American Rescue Plan funding. It was one of my favorite parts of the last meeting. So for this meeting, our virtual tour will focus on AmeriCorps' extensive work and investment in education. I'd like to turn this over to Alvin, who will be our virtual tour guide.
Thank you, Kathy. Good afternoon, everybody. I also want to join my colleagues in welcoming Shirley and Leslie to our board. We're excited to have you, as well as our other board members who couldn't join us for this meeting today. As Kathy mentioned in our last board meeting, this was one of the best parts of the meeting, was actually getting to do this virtual tour. So we're super excited to get to hear from grantees and partners from around the country. So as Cassie mentioned, our focus today is going to be on education. And throughout the history of our agency, education has been one of AmeriCorps' key focus areas. AmeriCorps awards hundreds of millions of dollars in funding to support education-focused projects each year. AmeriCorps members and AmeriCorps seniors volunteers support students across the entire education spectrum, from pre-K to college, helping them succeed in school and prepare them for higher education, careers, and life. They provide a range of services, including early learning, STEM programs, classroom instruction, mentoring, after-school and summer school support, tutoring, improving attendance, family engagement, social emotional learning, and college access and retention. Altogether, our members and volunteers provide educational programming to more than 1 million youth. That's pretty amazing. As someone who works for an education-focused foundation and who's been engaged in education most of my life, I know how valuable these supports can be in making a difference in students' lives. I also know how extremely challenging these past 2 years have been for students, educators, and schools due to the pandemic. Too many students experienced interruptions in learning or negative impacts on their social and emotional well-being, with a disproportionate impact on lower income and students of color. I appreciate how AmeriCorps' programs, partners, members, and volunteers acted quickly and creatively to meet the educational needs of students during the pandemic. Looking ahead, our programs will be more important than ever to address learning loss, teacher shortages, lost instruction time, and mental health challenges. To help understand the impact of AmeriCorps in education, the team has put together a virtual cross-country tour. So we can hear directly from AmeriCorps members and AmeriCorps seniors volunteers across the country. So we'll start our tour hearing from Jess Gomez, a Jumpstart AmeriCorps member and student at California State University, Dominguez Hills in Carson, California. Jess, are you there?
Yes, hello everyone.
Hi,
Hi, Jess.
we're
Hi.
very happy to have you with us. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do as a Jumpstart AmeriCorps member, and how Jumpstart helps students?
Yes, of course. Before I start saying how our program works, I would like to say that I'm truly honored to be here. So thank you for having me. Our Jumpstart program works towards the day every child enters kindergarten ready. As a core member, I support children's language and literacy along with their cognitive and social emotional development. I go out in the community and serve the preschoolers of Compton, California. With our creative minds, we implement session plans 2 times a week with incredible topics to learn. That includes amazing books to read and fun activities to play and learn. We work with our children for 1 whole academic year, which I think is phenomenal.
That's amazing, Jess. So can you tell us about a moment when you knew you had made a difference for a student?
Yes, of course. I actually have a very interesting story to share. A moment when I felt I changed a student's life happened my first year serving Jumpstart. I had a partner child from Head Start who knew all the titles of the books we had read throughout the year, and even the vocabulary words as well. He was able to use them in sentences and even demonstrate some vocabulary words such as rush. This made me very happy. From that point, I knew that this child was ready for kindergarten. I felt very accomplished and satisfied because the pandemic year was already difficult, as many of you guys know, but this student still managed to learn with our program. Jumpstart really evoked some resilience during these hard times.
That's fantastic. And imagine maybe you're going to come across that student again sometime in the future, and you're going to be able to take pride in that moment where you made a difference in their life. So thank you again, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
So now we're going to head a little closer to my home state of New Mexico, to Tucson, Arizona, and hear from Judith Hicks, an AmeriCorps foster grandparent serving through the Northern Arizona University Foster Grandparent Program. Judith, thank you very much for joining us. Love the background. Can you share a little bit about your service as a foster grandparent?
I mentor at Wheeler Elementary, and my kinders, I do the kinders, and my kinders, I have 4 classes, and I work with them to get their name, their ABCs, their numbers, their shapes, their colors. And throughout the year, we progress to sight words and reading simple little books. I have one experience with one child, and I'll be brief on this. His name was Hayden, and for some reason, he had a hard time with the Y. So I came up with this idea with him that we were going to spell his name, and we have parameters. We have the blue line, solid, the dash line, and the red line. Those are the parameters that we use for uppercase and lowercase. So we started out with his HA, and I asked him to put his finger down and finish out the rest of his name. And he looked at me kind of, what are we doing here? What I did was ask him to say what he had written. And it was Audit. I said, is that your name? He goes, no, you know my name. And I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put a V in that space. And I have a template that has the numbers and the letters, etc. And he pointed to a V as to ask me, is this right? And I said, if you think that's it, put it down. He wrote a V within the parameters. And I said, now put a tail on it. And he did. And I said, now what is that letter? He says, that's my Y. I said, now is what you did your name? He goes, of course it is. It's Hayden. And I said, yay. All right. Now you know that the Y is the most important letter in your name, because without that, it's Hayden. And he goes, that's not my name. I go, I know, but now you know how to write a Y. And he looked at me and he goes, well, that was easy. I said, well, then why didn't you get it the first time? You've seen it written. Why couldn't you write it? He goes, because it was hard and you made it easy by telling me to put a tail on a V. I mean, the kid was incredible. I just love that little bugger. But I teach him how to go with the simplest way to get the light bulb to shine. And when he saw all he had to do was put a tail on the V, the light bulb came on and he never, ever missed again. Never. And I was so proud of him. I tell you, I was just so proud of that little guy.
Judith, that is just amazing. All of us could tell how committed you are, how creative you are, and how caring you are. And that is exactly what our young kids need, especially at this time. So we all want to thank you for your service. You're just a great example for all of us.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. I am 6 years into the program now, and I can't imagine not doing the foster grandparent program.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move over to Upland, California, and hear from Valerie Tu, a Food Corps AmeriCorps member. Valerie, you there? Oh, great. Good to see you. So can you tell us a little bit about what Food Corps does and how it supports students?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Valerie. The core of what we do at Food Corps is teach lessons about gardening, plant science, and nutrition. We kind of filter in some fun taste tests and collective class cooking. And when we're not prepping for lessons, because we go from kinder to 6th grade or kinder to 5th grade, which is a lot of differentiation. We're out in the garden, we're out in the cafeteria, just kind of building connection with kids, asking them like what they're eating, what choices are they making in our cafeterias, and just how their day's going. It's really awesome to build that connection. I think if you ask any Food Corps service member, they'd be like, oh yeah, I'm famous. Everywhere I go, the kids are like, hi, Miss Valerie. And it's super fun what we do. But at the core, and Megan, who's our other service member in the district, put this so profoundly, but also simply. And the idea is that our kids, they have nothing to prove to us. They automatically have our love, and that's what we do for them. We show up, we teach them a little bit about the world and the environment, and maybe a little bit about themselves.
Well, I forgot to say thank you for joining us. We know that you're in great demand because of how famous you are. We would all appreciate your autograph whenever you get around to it. Actually, Judith is a hard act to follow, but I'm wondering if you could share a moment when you knew you made a difference in students' life.
Yeah, Judith's story was amazing. For me, school gardens are the basis of an oasis for kids, especially after these past 2 years. We have a lot of behavioral remediation that needs to occur on our campus, and our TOSAs, our aides, our counselors, they all bring the kids out to the garden because they know through that tangibility, it's just a really good moment to heal. And I have the sixth grader, and she's really just like, I'm too cool for school. Like, I don't need to be here. Like, where's the darkest eyeliner I've ever seen? And I took her out to the garden just to because they're an after school program. And the way she lit up and reminded me that she's just a kid at heart. And all she wants to do is have fun and do fun things. And she led the charge of digging out bugs in the garden and pulling weeds. I was like, okay, I didn't even think you want to get your hands dirty, but good for her. And it's just very powerful to be in a space like a garden. Thank you.
Valerie, thank you for that. I'm a farmer and I've raised our 3 kids in our field, so I know exactly about the healing power of food. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now we're going to head over to New York City and hear from Cici Nanes, an AmeriCorps member serving with City Year New York. Cici, are you there?
Hi, and it's Nanya's actually. There's a
Thank
tilde
you.
over the second N.
No tilde in my notes, but I should have known better.
No,
Cici
it's
Nanes.
okay.
Cici Nanes,
It's
thank you very
okay.
much for joining us. Well, can you tell us a little bit about City Year and how it supports students?
Yes, I would love to. Also want to thank you for letting me join today. I was really surprised when I got the invitation because I was like, are they sure? Me? They want me to speak? But thank you so much for having me. So yeah, City Year. So City Year places student success coaches, which are us, in other words, a mentor. But we like to call them student success coaches, all across the US in systemically underserved communities. So what that basically means is we're put in here in New York City, we're put in different boroughs. We have about 15 partnerships here. And we go into a classroom, we get a partner teacher. We work with K through 8, and we assist the partner teacher with behavior management, but mostly we're there for the support of the student in more ways than a teacher is able to dedicate the time to do, right? They have 60 kids a day. There's no way they can get to all 60 kids, but we have the time and flexibility to do so. We can pull them out and have those coaching conversations. We can have those one-on-one times in class to where we can get them to understand the problem. We can get them to understand the text. And we're basically just a helping hand. And then we also do after school programs, which we then also write lesson plans for them to do. We do clubs, we do transitions, they have snack with us, we do homework help, which is really a big focal point for us because as a lot of us know, especially now that the pandemic is declining a little bit. I mean, we know COVID is still alive and real, but parents are back to work. They cannot dedicate the time they would like to their students at home. Some of them, there's a language barrier and they don't understand the topics, they don't understand the problems. So for us, that's where we come in, and it's a benefit that we call it near to peer because we're closer in age to our students than teachers are and their parents. But some of them, it's been so long since they've done math, they don't even know how to do it anymore. And that's understandable. So we really focus on the homework help aspect.
Thank you, Cici. Can you tell us a story about when you feel like you had made a difference in a student's life?
Absolutely. This is my second year serving with City Year. And I was privileged enough to get placed back into my same school from last year. I serve at JHS 123 in the South Bronx. And one particular student who I still have in my after school class, his name is Galdino. And he last year was very reactive, as most of our students were. Their social cues were not the same anymore. They were used to being talked to and talked at from a screen. They didn't know how to interact with children anymore. It just was very new and different. And there is a language barrier with him sometimes in terms of him understanding the way that people talk to him and he immediately will react. And I noticed that and I kind of was like, okay, well, like, what's going on? Like, because there's something deeper than at the surface level as to why you're acting like this. And he had a lot of personal things going on at home, and his in school was really the only escape for him. And so he was trying so hard to just like fit in everything that he wanted to do. And when I saw him excel was when we started doing art in after school. We partner with Marquee Studios, and he is so talented. And it was just crazy. Like when I saw him draw, I was like, whoa, like where did this come from? And that was his outlet. And my old partner from after school and I came together. We bought him a sketchbook, we bought him art pens, pencils, because we wanted him to focus on what his passion was. And after we did that, we noticed a huge change in his emotions and in his demeanor and the way that he would approach people, because he was getting out all of those emotions instead of projecting them onto everybody else. And so having him this year and seeing the growth that he's had is amazing. He was actually, there was a 7th grader that was like bothering him. Rightfully so, he was annoyed. And instead of reacting, he came and he said, hey, Miss Cece, I need to talk to you. So I'm like, okay. So we go out in the hallway and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, I am really frustrated. This kid is annoying me. I've already told him to stop and he's not listening. And he was like, and I remember what you taught me last year. He was like, so that's why I came and talked to you. Because I stress self-advocation with my students so much, because we can't read your minds. I would love to. I would love to know every single thing that's going on through their head, but I can't. And so for him to have the maturity to come and talk to me and advocate for himself was huge, because that's growth, right? Like progress is not linear for these students, but like it's slow but steady. And for him to know that like he made the right choice, because I was like, I'm so proud of you right now. I was like, do you understand what you just did? And he was like, what? I just told you what I was feeling. I said, exactly. You told me what you were feeling instead of reacting. I said, because last year that could have led to you getting into a fight. That's just the reality. It could have led to that point. and you grew, like you're talking, you're vocalizing how you feel. And it's just a beautiful thing to know that our impact, even though they don't tell us every day that they love us, they don't tell us every day that they appreciate us, when they grow and they have situations like that, we know the impact that we make.
Absolutely. It's just really amazing to hear that example of the power of those one-on-one interactions and the kind of support that students just really need at this time. So I just want to tell you, thank you so much for your service, Cece.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, and now we're gonna wind up our tour, heading to Breakthrough Central Texas to talk with Maya Carter. Maya, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Welcome. We would love to hear from you a little bit about Breakthrough Central Texas and how it supports students.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak. This is an amazing opportunity, and I'm glad that you guys are going to be able to hear a little bit about how we work with our students. So at Breakthrough Central Texas, we serve students within the greater Central Texas area. So that's mostly Austin. So the students start in middle school and it goes all the way up into college. And we help them 6 years past high school. So whatever they choose to do after they graduate from high school, we will be with them for 6 years following that. We just started a new program called our PSAT program, the Post-Secondary Advising Program. And that essentially helps students who are at a high school who probably didn't go through the traditional 12-year program. Essentially, we give them the option to opt in or opt out for also 6 years following high school graduation. And we can help them through college if they choose to go to like a technical school, or if they want to go to a traditional 4-year, then whatever that may look like. I specifically work on the College and Career Access Program, and I help with students basically who want to go to college or who want to find a career after high school. So, and most of our students are first generation, and we make sure to include the families as a part of that, because a big part of the students' lives is the families, and making sure we consider all avenues of that. And essentially, we help them in all aspects of what it would be like to succeed in college. So if that is financial aid, or if that's helping with like applying to schools itself, or transferring to schools, withdrawing from schools, we provide direct service to students so we can go to campuses and stuff. I specifically serve students within different parts of Texas, so I will travel to those colleges. One school that I can say that most people probably will know off the bat is Texas A&M in College Station. That's one of the bigger campuses that I serve directly. And yeah, that's a big part of what we do.
Fantastic. Can you tell us about a moment when you knew you'd have made a difference in a student's life?
Yes, so this is actually my 3rd year as an AmeriCorps member in Breakthrough Central Texas. And I'd say one of the things that I probably one of the things that made a huge impact, just even more recently, because it's a growing story. It's something that kind of just keeps building on. This first year I was working with a student who was enrolled in Texas State University in San Marcos, and she wanted to do dental hygienist. She was trying to become a dental hygienist, but she wasn't really sure like how to go about doing that. And she was really she was taking the classes and everything. She signed up for everything, but she felt very overwhelmed, and she felt super stressed. Like she thought she was doing everything wrong. We provide tutors. So I got her a tutor to help her with her classes and everything. She said it still didn't feel like it was helping a lot. So she decided to withdraw from school. Kind of lost track with her after a while. Unfortunately, like when people think of Austin, they don't think of rural areas, but we have a lot of rural areas, and a lot of our students are in those rural areas. So it was hard to kind of connect with her sometimes because her Wi-Fi wasn't the best. So we decided to just meet at a Starbucks every now and then. So I remember I met with her at a Starbucks my 2nd year serving, and we were just talking about like what her plans were for the future and what she wanted to do. And she decided that she was still interested in doing something dental related. So she decided to go to dental assisting school. So I helped her look for programs. She applied to some programs. She decided to do one. She completed it and everything. And then we met up not too long after she completed it, and she was working. And then while she was working, like she got a little bit more experience and she felt a little bit more comfortable with everything. And then fast forward a few months later after that, she was like, you know what, Maya, actually, I think I can be a dental hygienist. What they do is easy. Like I'm going to do it. I can totally do that. And I was just like, oh, okay, good for you. Like, you know, it was a huge confidence boost. She went from, I just remember her crying because it was like on Zoom that first year, her crying on Zoom, being like, I'm not going to pass my classes, to like, I can do that. And like, as of right now, as we speak, she's actually in college right now, and she's on track to become a dental hygienist. So
That's
Right.
fantastic. That's awesome. What an inspirational story to end on. And Maya, I'm glad to hear that you're in Austin, because there's a conference happening there called the Grant Makers for Education Conference, and a good number of my colleagues are there. So I'm hoping you could just break away for a little bit and make sure they're actually going to the conference. To all of the live music around there.
Not hanging out on 6th Street.
Just take care of it.
and ACL just ended. So I mean, you know.
Okay, we'll talk offline. No, thank you very much. Just, we really, really appreciate your service.
Thank you for the opportunity again. This is amazing. Thank you.
Well, once again, this is an amazing part of our meeting. I think that we're going to keep this going, but I just want to, on behalf of the whole board, Michael, all of our team here at AmeriCorps, I want to thank you, Jess, Judith, Cece, Valerie, Maya. Your service is inspirational. We're grateful for your work, and we wish you continued success. Hearing your stories made me think of this quote: education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. The extra support, the caring, the concern that each of you talked about, and that other AmeriCorps members and volunteers provide, can be that spark in the lives of our students and our young people, so that they learn how to read, so that they stay on track to graduate, so they find their way into a career, and they succeed. So thank you all again. Madam Chair, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alvin, and thanks to all of you for those stories. Again, as I said, that is, as Alvin said, it's our favorite part of the meeting, hearing from what you had to say, because if there's any question if we're doing what we should be doing, hearing those stories really makes all the difference in the world. With the time remaining, the board is now open to hearing comments from members of the public on what's been discussed today. I'd like to remind you to keep your comments to 2 minutes so we can accommodate as many of those who wish to speak. The board takes all these comments seriously and from our stakeholders, and we follow up with the appropriate AmeriCorps staff members who have the most knowledge about it. So we may not comment on everything that you say, but feel free to share with us. It's really important. And now I understand LSI will, if you just raise your hand, LSI will identify you and we'll move through these comments. So LSI, anyone that has their hand up?
Yes,
Hello.
Sagar.
Hi, yeah, happy to introduce myself. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm happy also
Can.
to get the video going too, if that's doable. But hello, everyone. My name is Sagar Gupta. I am the coordinator of service learning programs at American University in Washington, D.C. When I was 18 and going to college, I chose American University on a whim. I was selected for the Community-Based Research Scholars Program in my first year of college, which was new. It was new to the nation as a program. And I met about 40 students who all had this passion of community service from high school who were all selected into this program. And I got to see us bond over service learning as a concept. It inspired me to get involved with something called the Eagle Endowment for Public and Community Service, which was an AU-run grant distributing organization that gave money and mentorship to students who do community action projects. Eventually, I became the coordinator and I helped fund and mentor over 40 students to do impactful projects, which I'd love to share some examples of. To keep it quick, there was one where a student who was a member of a fraternity had gone into a foster home and in the classic community-based pedagogy, asked students, what is one thing we could do that would make your day-to-day experience better? And they responded that we wish we had more outdoor recreation time. We had a basketball court, it's a little rundown. So we funded it, they recruited volunteers, talked to the facilities, built it, and it's now insured for 15 years, a whole generation of youth who are able to go through that. That's one of 40 other projects, all service learning based, all community researched. And it changed my trajectory. I went for an MPA in nonprofit management. Our Eagle Endowment ended up winning top college philanthropy in the US. I went on to get selected by Red Bull to go on to social action spring break. And it really changed how I approach service. I went into directing a nonprofit on the development side, and then into executive recruiting and coaching. And now I'm actually back at American University running service learning programs for AU, my alma mater. And as a first generation American, an immigrant with immigrant parents, I was so focused on jobs with financial security. If it wasn't for service learning education, I would have probably never been inspired to join this field. So I thank you for the time. I urge you to please support funding those for service learning and follow the written comments for the Coalition for Service Learning and support that in the House Labor H bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next, LSI.
Hello, my name is Noriana Jacopin. I am a student at the University of Maryland, and I'm here to urge you to support the reinstatement of service learning programs in public schools and higher education institutions. 8 years ago, as a sophomore in high school, I was lucky enough to be part of a public school system which has a service learning graduation requirement. And looking to complete this requirement, I found a small nonprofit for a lesser known neurological disease, the Hydrocephalus Association, in need of volunteers. 8 years later, I went from volunteer to intern to my current role as a part-time staff member in their research department. I immediately felt the passion of my coworkers for the mission to improve the lives of those with the condition, and have always taken immense pride in my work there. At a nonprofit without great public visibility, it's an all hands on deck environment, which let me clearly see the impact my work had on their mission, even when I was just starting out and having to manually enter thousands of contact information. In addition to the joy I felt from making such an impact, I had access to invaluable mentorship, which has shaped me both as a person and as a professional. Without my mentor, I don't think I would be nearly as prepared to enter the world as a well-rounded, thoughtful adult. Furthermore, as a budding research scientist with a fascination in neuroscience, I have had direct access to people who are doing what I aspire to do, which has kickstarted my career. 8 years later, I am now helping with strategic planning, collaborating with research scientists in the field, and on my way to publishing 3 papers in peer-reviewed scientific journals. Because my school had service learning, I was set up on a path to success, and it is my hope that all young people have that same opportunity. Please help me make that possible by supporting the reinvestment in our nation's service learning programs in the 2023 House Labor H bill. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much for that story. It's important to hear these kind of stories and for us to take on these challenges and giving that model. We talked earlier today about the model of career, this leading to a career, and you're a perfect example of that. So thank you for sharing that story. Do we have anyone else?
Hello, my name is Zara Ali. I am a student at Augsburg University in Minnesota, and I'm also a youth representative on the National Youth Leadership Council's board. I'm here in support of the Coalition for Service Learning's comments on reinstating service learning programs and prioritizing grants towards public schools and higher education institutions in economically disadvantaged communities. I believe that service learning is a tool for building community, a necessary tool for building community and connecting young people at school through various programs towards career professionals, local businesses, and resources that they might not otherwise have access to or might not know are even there. In my experience, service learning helped me contact professionals in the Minneapolis suburbs who were cultivating education equity in schools and allowed me to bring their resources, skills, and knowledge to my own school, which was having some issues around racial diversity. And during the distance learning time, service learning also helped connect my high school to libraries who really needed resources around technology, media literacy, and helped support students and parents who were doing distance learning at home. As a future teacher, I see service learning as an invaluable resource in connecting with students and enriching their learning. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to our stories on service learning and its impact, and I implore you to supply young people with this path to lifelong learning.
Thank you so much for your comments. I know we're getting close. How much time do we have? Okay, we can go. Do we have somebody else?
There are no others.
Okay. All right. Well, then, if there are no other comments, in closing, I'd like to thank the members of the board, the AmeriCorps staff, and the members of the public for joining us today. This has been an important discussion to strengthen and advance the work of AmeriCorps and to help the agency meet its mission to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic engagement through service and volunteering. Is there, Michael, did you have anything you wanted to add? Or if not?
No, Madam Chair, please.
Okay. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Without objection, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for joining us today.